Welcome to the Car Guys, and this week we've gone totally Essex. That's right, it's all about our top 10 fast Fords.
Can you believe we've finally got around to actually the best list that we've ever done? Forget your Ferraris and your Porsches, this is where it's at.
Fords, they're accessible, they're fun, they're easy to maintain, they're cheap, and there's also one in everyone's car history, so you're guaranteed to have some resonance with pretty much every one of you.
Absolutely. You can't afford a Porsche, but you can afford a Mondeo, or something else more interesting.
The reason why we wanted to do this top 10, probably more than any others, is because of our deep resonance with the Ford brand and our absolute love and nostalgia for fast Fords through the ages. It's worth mentioning that we haven't really got any of the super modern Ford RS products in this list, mainly because we've not driven any of them. So if you want information on those cars, you need to talk to Shmi. And we've also not included any trucks or vans, so you're not going to see the Transit in this list.
Right, okay, so let's get cracking. Time is of the essence. Damien, tell me, what is your first top fast Ford?
The first one, somewhat predictably, is a car that I still hope to own, and it is the Escort Cosworth. Boom!
Boom,
Come
get
on.
in there.
Just let it sink in for a minute.
Unbelievable. Sledgehammer.
I mean, I absolutely love these cars. I love them. I just love the proportions. I love the big wing. It's got to be the big wing version for me. It was made from sort of 93 to 1998. It was initially the big wing up to 1994, and then obviously it went all wussy and small wing and small turbo, which admittedly did make it a lot more drivable. But I think
yes.
if I'm going to actually have one, I think it's got to be that original big wing Larry version, because it's a plaything. It's not meant to be used on a daily basis.
No, it's meant to be abused on a daily basis.
Obviously, Clarkson, he's played a big part in that.
Cosworth.
It's permanent four-wheel drive. It's got Sierra Cosworth underpinnings. Obviously, it's powered by that lusty 2-litre YB series engine, only 224 brake horsepower. But yeah, it did shift, and obviously with that big turbo, there was a huge wallop of grunt all at one time.
Wow, you really do love them, don't you?
It was purely made to win rally championships, and it never did, but it's still awesome. I just love it. So Jason, what is your first choice?
So, bang up top of my list is the Capri.
Oh.
Right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The Capri has endured across many years, built in the UK as the kind of European Mustang, came out with a really pathetic engine, then they put a V6 in it, and it kind of culminated towards the end of its time. It was the 2.8 injection special. Now, the reason why I've picked that particular model is because that was around in 1981 when I was 10, 11 years old. One of my best friends at school, his dad owned one. He owned a white one, and he would let his son at 13 years old, drive it out of the garage to wash it every weekend.
This was in Essex, wasn't it?
This was in Essex. And
so it's a white
garage.
Capri.
It's a white
in
Capri
Essex.
in Essex. I mean, you could not get more ubiquitous than that. So we used to go out, and then occasionally we'd just take it round the block. As a couple of little 14-year-old boys, we'd just drive it round the block a little bit. No one would ever know. Now, the 2.8 injection special, don't get me wrong, had a bloody great big V6 in it, barely 180 horsepower.
What I love with the Capri is that the 1.6 weedy, crappy engined one, they decided to call it the Laser.
I know, incredible, isn't it? It's a laser. No, it's not, is it? It's shocking.
Yeah, it's not a laser because all it is a little bit of Electroset on the back of the car. That's it. There's no lasers in this car.
No. Zaxby did a turbocharged version in Europe, which must have been just ridiculous. Can you imagine? I mean, they were pretty much undrivable at the best of times.
I was going to say, I bet there's none of those left in existence because they're all destroyed. It's got so many memories for us, mainly because obviously it was driven in the professionals. My second choice is basically, I mean, it's a whole category of car, but it is also one very specific car. So my second choice is the Ford Mustang, but specifically for me, not the GT350, which is an awesome car, but it's the GT500 is the one that I absolutely lusted after. And if you remember, Jason, when we did a review, I think with watches at the Octane collection, they actually had one of these in there in Raven Black.
Yeah.
And I absolutely fell in love with it and stupidly didn't buy it.
Oh, I can't believe that you never bought it. And you still went, oh, I'm not sure, really.
I should have snapped it up. I mean, it's just so John Wick. It's ludicrous,
so John Wick.
I mean, I just, I was looking back over the footage. I mean, it's just so beautiful. I love that sort of late 60s shape that the 500s were based on. It's a 7-litre V8, for God's sake. A 7-litre. It's a 428 cube 7-litre V8. I mean, what was I thinking?
Why did you not buy that car? Yeah, that was definitely a bad pass there.
I mean, this was like the ultimate version of the Shelby breathed upon Mustang, and 1967, absolutely at the peak. There was not many of them made either, and it had a chassis warping 7-litre, engine. I mean, I should have done it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to you, Car Guys viewers, and I'm sorry to you, Jason, for basically.
I mean, I did try, but but what can I say?
All right, so Mr. Jason, your second choice, please.
I didn't realise you were going to go in with the big gun straight away, and I feel slightly disappointed now. I mean, you just, swept down the playing field and scored 2 massive goals. So I'm going to bring out the big guns now. This is possibly the most iconic Ford ever built. This is the RS 200.
Oh, yes. Yes.
The Group B cancelled. You want to talk about cancel culture? Let's talk about Group B rallying. That's cancel culture, my friend. Just because a few people got accidentally killed, the RS 200 is everything that rallying should have been. It's the Formula One of rallying.
And it doesn't even look like a Ford. It looks like nothing else that they've ever made before or since.
It's incredible. It's got a Cosworth-derived 1.8-litre engine with the most humongous turbos on it. So they produced 200 of these, which is why it's called the RS 200, for homologation purposes. But what they did was they down-tuned the road-going version to just 246 brake horsepower in a car that barely weighs 4.5 ounces, I might add. So already it's quite exciting, but the rally versions had over 400 horsepower. I can't imagine what it was like on full boost.
I've actually been in one at full chat with the turbo turned up.
What?
How about that? How about them apples, eh?
What's going on here? Ford is my thing.
One of the guys I knew from the video games industry, Archer McLean, he had one of those. He had an RS 200. And I remember going to his house, he wheeled it out of the garage, and I didn't know what the hell it was, because obviously it looks like a space age thing. And we went out for a drive in it. So I have experienced the turbo boost of an RS 200 driven by a very capable owner of that car. His car was in the Guinness Book of Records back then as the fastest accelerating car in the world at that point. So this would have been in the mid-90s, I would say.
So how exciting was it? I mean, was it like rip your face off?
It was ridiculous. Oh yeah, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. It was the most sort of thrust that I'd ever felt. I'm not even sure if I felt more since. And also, to put it in perspective, he also had a 288 GTO, and we went out in that. So I got to feel the sensation of the boost from both of those cars back to back. And obviously, the RS 200 felt a lot more rapid,
a lot more frightening. Wow.
Exactly. I was fully clenched in there. There's
a place out near me called Burnham on Crouch, and to get to Burnham is there's a series of bends, and I remember going up there one day and an RS 200 came the other way round this bend, and I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. It was on full chat. It was just mind-blowing. I was absolutely speechless to see this thing going at full chat around these bends. It's just incredible. Amazing. Absolutely incredible.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You dream of finding cars like that out on the road in the wild.
Yeah, you do. And that's the type of thing I've never seen one since on the road. I fear it's a bit downhill from here on in.
It definitely is in terms of my list, yeah, without a doubt, because I'm peaking well early on this, and then I'm basically piddling down to a small fizzle at the end. My next choice is probably, apart from the Model T, the most iconic Ford that has ever been made. I'm going to go for the Ford GT40 / Ford GT, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm sort of lumping them together. I didn't want to split them out and take up 2 slots, because basically it means I can get more cars in my list if I do it this way. I respect the GT40 massively. It's not really my era, but it is beautiful, it's tiny, it's obviously very, very successful. So it won Le Mans in 66, 67, 68 and 69. It beat Ferrari, as we all know from the recent film. British built initially for the first 3 versions of it, so it's got it's special to us for that point of view. That's why we can embrace this car as much as the Americans can. It's not a car that I personally lusted after, and I've never massively wanted to own one. Even when Noel Edmonds owned his, and he was famous for having it, I was more excited about the new then Ford GT, which was launched in 2004. That was quite exciting, and it's a much more drivable, interesting car for, I guess, us, because it's less intimidating and obviously more practical. Hopefully, incidentally, Car Guys fans, we are going to get a drive in that this year, because one of you fantastic people out there has offered us a drive in this car. Do you know why it's not called the GT40?
Because it's not 40 inches?
That's what I thought, you see. It's not 40 inches, which is true. It's not 40 inches off the ground, which is why they called the GT40 what it is. No, it's actually because someone else owned the trademark for GT40, really? Not Ford. And so therefore there was a bit of a licensing dispute, which meant that they could use it on the concept cars, but when it came to full production they couldn't agree on terms. So that's why it's called the Ford GT,
Ford
and
GT.
obviously why the brand new one's called Ford GT.
I would definitely have a first gen one. I'd love that. I love the size and the things. It would scare the bejesus out of me.
Mr. Jason, what is your next choice?
So this is the Lotus Cortina Mark 1. Now, I've worked on an original Mark 1 Lotus Cortina. I've done some bodywork bits and pieces on it. But the thing that really makes it stand out for me is that picture of Jim Clark sliding it round the circuit when the thing's on 3 wheels, right?
That is amazing.
And when you see that picture and you look at the car, standing still, it is a very good looking car. It kind of epitomises the 60s racing driver. You know, you go out on a Sunday, you race that on the Sunday, you race Formula Ones in the afternoon. My dad had a Cortina, my mum had an old Cortina. You know, it was kind of the everyman car, and yet Jim Clark could get in one and slide it on 3 wheels. It's just, yeah, that is a really iconic Ford for me. It's not what I would call massively powerful. You know, it only had 115 brake horsepower of its 1.6 engine, but it only weighed 850 kilos. And because in those days you had to keep the thing going, right? You couldn't just accelerate up to a corner, drive around and accelerate away again. You had to basically maintain speed at all times, which is probably why he's got it on 3 wheels, because he probably didn't bother braking.
And you see him at every classic car show, and you can't fail to be impressed, really.
Right, come on then, let's get your number 4.
Number 4 on my list. Again, you could say that they're multiple cars, but really it is the Sierra RS Cosworth. You've got the normal Sierra Cosworth, you've got the RS 500, you've got like the Sierra 4x4 and the Sierra Sapphire. So you've got all those in there, really. And they are feeling their age a little bit now. I mean, they made them from, you know, the original sort of RS Cosworths, they made from 86 to 92. And you obviously had a huge wing on the back, you know, 3-door shape, huge wing. Again, it's a homologation special designed to try and get them going in racing. They actually made 5,500 of those original 3-door RS Cosworths, of which obviously 500 were taken over to Tickford to change into RS 500s.
Which one would you go and buy?
You see, that's tricky because we drove the RS 500.
Yes, we did.
And we absolutely fell in love
Literally,
with it. I have to say,
myself.
I mean, it was fantastic.
Honestly.
So that one, that is going to have a special place, I'd say. I mean, if you'd have asked me without me maybe driving that, I'd have definitely said the Sapphire Cosworth.
Yeah, Spender.
Because, yeah, exactly, Spender. If you don't know what Spender is, he was a sort of mumbly Geordie detective played by Jimmy Nail, the toothless crooning Geordie, and they gave him a Sierra Sapphire Cosworth to drive. So he's a detective series basically. There was actually loads of Ford's action in that series. I think they had a sponsorship deal or something going on with them. This is how blatant Spender was in terms of the product placement of that Sapphire. Right, I'm not making this up. I'll play this clip for you right now. When they actually introduce it in the series, and they actually say it by name, he says, "How are Spender? Check out your Sierra Sapphire."
It's a Sierra Sapphire Cosworth, apparently.
Spender actually looks at the car for a few seconds and then says,
"It's a beast."
I mean, that is product placement to a whole different level. It was part of the script. That's how much they wanted that car in there.
That's amazing. And they were used by almost every criminal in the country.
I just like the proportions of it as well. I like the fact that it was one of those Q cars where it sort of looked like a Sierra, but for those in the know, you'd check out the wheels, you'd look at the ride height, you'd look at that little spoiler on the back, and you'd know that it was the Cosworth.
This is my next car. Okay, are you ready? So the Escort has been around for 5,000 years now, I think it is. I think they dug up some wrecks. I think dinosaurs are driving around in them. But this is kind of, I've got two Escorts, I'm going to admit. I've got two Escorts in my list. So this is the Mark IV RS Turbo, right? Now this is a classic fast Ford for the everyday man. The Mark III came out. When the Mark III came out, they put a turbocharger in it. Everybody lost their minds. The Mark IV came out much tamer, around 130 brake horsepower, which in those days was heady, to say the least.
Now it doesn't even power the supercharger on a car.
We thought that was just a whole different world. Vents in the bonnet, little spoiler on the back, RS Turbo, it just killed. And everybody at the time had XR3Is. But the XR3i boys wanted to prove that they had a turbo, because the only difference really was the bonnet. They would cut louvers into the bonnet to make it look like an RS Turbo.
Amazing.
And you'd be like, "Oh, is that an RS Turbo?" And they'd be like, "Yeah." And you go, "No, I don't think it is, mate. That exhaust pipe's not big enough."
Yeah, because I can see the saw marks.
Exactly.
So when I was at school, one of my friends, he got an inheritance whilst we were still at school. So this would be secondary school, and he got a £20,000 inheritance from, like, you know, a granny or something like that. And he went and spent the whole lot on a white E-Reg RS Turbo.
Amazing.
Boom! What a player!
What a player! What a player! Amazing. He could have bought a house with that, and he went and built an RS Turbo. Right, come on then. Last one. Is this the last one on your list?
It's my last car on the list, yes. So my fifth choice is the Ford Racing Puma. Oh, is that crickets? Can I hear crickets?
I'm sorry. Hang on a minute. Did you just say Ford Racing Puma?
I did. Remember, Puma back then, back in the 90s, Puma wasn't the SUV. It was this little small coupe.
Yeah,
it was quite a cool little coupe.
No, it wasn't cool.
So it was, well, the racing one was. Let me state my case, and then you can basically condemn me after that if you want. This is my sort of secret little Ford crush. I've got a lot of Ford crushes, but this is one of them. They only made 500 of them. They were extremely fettle. They were lower, they were more squat, they were more menacing, they were wider, they handled a lot better, they went a lot faster than the standard Puma. So there's not that many of them. They're quite recognisable because I think they're all blue, as far as I remember. I don't know if they made them in other colours, but I only remember them being blue. We're talking 155 brake horsepower in a car that weighs about the same as a pack of cards. The defence rests.
The reason why you don't see many of them is because everyone who had one is so embarrassed by it that they've actually put it in their garage and never got it back out again.
I have to say, it does have the most gaudy Sparco seats that you have ever seen in a car.
Your entire life.
I mean, they are horrendous.
Okay. I mean, the nice things I can say about it, if I could ever find any, are that it was wider at the front. It had a whole new suspension setup. The track was much wider than the standard car. It was built to go, I think it was rallying. I think it built it as a front-wheel drive rally car. So it was another homologation. So in that vein, I suppose I can allow it.
Right, moving on. Come on, let's get onto yours to end this list properly, shall we?
So this is a Mark I Escort Mexico. My dad used to work at Ford when I was very little. His dad worked at Ford as well. And so every year they would get a brand new Ford because that's what you did when you worked at Ford. I vividly remember my dad owning a green Escort Mexico with black stripes down the side.
Oh, those Mexicos were, it's all about rallying. And I remember I went on a rally course and there's pictures of me, which I'll show you right now, of a young impish Damien driving one of those cars sideways, and I absolutely loved it. So easy to drive, so easy to control in a slide, just fabulous. Not too much power, but it was all about the balance and the steering, and I absolutely adore those cars.
But yeah, incredible. That really is a defining thing. When you're that age, you know, 70s, in the beginning of the 70s, those, you know, they were winning everything, Ford. Ford just won rallying. That was it. Ford turned up, everyone else went, oh no.
So there you go, guys. That is our top 10 list of fast Fords. Quite a smorgasbord, lots of interesting choices, I hope you'll agree. Obviously, we've got to have some honourable mentions of ones that aren't in the list that you would no doubt have been screaming at the screen, spitting feathers. So, you know, we've got to mention the XR3i, of course. We've got to mention the Granada Scorpio V6 24 valve.
Yeah. Cosworth engine again. Cosworth engine.
The Focus RS, so various iterations of the Focus RS, but predominantly the Mark 1 and Mark 2. The XR2 Fiesta, absolutely love those, both Mark 1 and Mark 2. The Ford F-150 Raptor, if we're allowed to include that in a fast Ford, which basically we are. Oh yeah.
Because it's our show.
The Model T, which was fast back then and obviously very iconic, but would feel a bit weird being in our list. The Boss Mustang 429. And also the Ford Taurus, which for me will forever be enshrined as the car that was in RoboCop as the police cars. Oh yeah. Thanks for watching this episode on our top 10 fast Fords. I hope you enjoyed it.
We really, really enjoyed making this episode. It's been one of our favourites to do. Please subscribe, leave comments. Don't forget to ding that notification bell for when we have another episode uploaded. Find us on Instagram, Facebook and our website, and don't forget to buy that merch.
There'll be another episode of The Car Guys next week.